All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Hopefully you know I'm Mary Beth Thompson. I work formerly of CSB Residential Life and now of CSB and SJU working with the Hive. And so have partnered with the folks over in instructional technology to offer these trainings this summer. If you have any questions at any time, you can always reach out to me individually. I'm here to help you. That's why I'm here. And if we mention any functionality that you haven't set up yet for your department, you're interested in pursuing further, please connect with me offline and we can figure out maybe some of those additional features to roll out for your group. Today's session, we are talking about the basics. So we're hoping that this is really the things that you need to get started to kind of meet the requests and expectations set forth from academic affairs last December with the charge when we were going live with the Hive. So being able to document your meetings and appointments, being able to respond to progress surveys, and being able to utilize the Hive to leverage it for recording or reporting any concerns that you may have with attendance, and we can talk about a couple ways that that can happen. I know there's folks from different departments here. I think we've got history, and I'm going to say biology, is that right, Miss Professor Selp? And accounting, is that right, Hui? And Betsy, is it education? I forget.
English and Comm.
English and Comm. I had the E in my head. I had that connected, but I wasn't quite there. Okay, English and Comm. And then I know Andrea and Catherine, I'm not sure for sure. I know I've seen your names before, but I can't recall which departments you're from. So let me know if you want to, or even throw it in the chat. I know you've got your cameras on mute, so hello, welcome. So just kind of,
hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yep, I can hear you. So Catherine, what department are you with?
I'm with the biology department.
Biology department, okay. So we've got Stephen and Catherine together.
Yep, sorry,
All right.
if my internet
and
cuts
Art.
out a
Yes,
little
that's
bit.
okay. That is fine. And so I guess I might just kind of take a quick poll to help me to understand where everybody's at with things. Who's had a chance to get in and create their profile in the Hive so far? Kind of a thumbs up or a hand up? Okay. Okay, couple. So some, not all. Has anyone recorded any meetings or meeting notes within the Hive yet? Nope. Okay. And then I'm going to hope this one's a yes. Has everyone responded to a progress survey last spring? Perfect. Okay. Well, okay. So a little bit of mix. Okay, so that's good. So we'll do kind of a tour of everything then, and hopefully the handout that I sent to you, or that Ethan sent along with yesterday's link for the meeting, please make sure that you kind of save that. It's also linked off the Hive's website, so that should you leave this meeting and you're like, oh, what did Mary Beth say about this? Hopefully, really that's meant to walk you through all the features connected to these basics. There's both a written guide and a short video tutorial to accompany each thing, so that hopefully whatever you're doing, whenever you get back to it, you can refresh yourself as needed and get done what you need to get done. And again, I'm always here to help. So I'm going to share my screen and open up the Hive, because I think just walking through a few features and showing you is maybe one of the better ways to do it with this particular session. So when you first come into the Hive, you will be taken to kind of this main page. You can customize this as part of your setup, which page you see. And I have it smaller right now because I want to show you that this is a responsive page. So if you're viewing it on a tablet or a phone, it will adjust. And that's what happens with the student pages too. So a lot of the pages within the Hive are mobile responsive, kind of just like the CSB+SJU website. So while there's no app, they're made to kind of expand and contract. Okay, so we're going to look at your profile, because that's the first thing you really need to do to get to kind of bring your presence to the Hive. You go to what we call the hamburger menu here at the top left-hand side. Click on that, and then you find your name and a little caret that's dropped down there. And then there's 3 components to setting up your profile, and we'll just start with the first one where it says institutional profile. Some of this information when we get here will be populated for you from Banner, such as your phone number and your username and your email address. Those will be there, and those are static. But you can update your office phone number here And that's really the only one of these 4 fields that I would recommend that you populate. Whatever you put in here will display on your profile. So if you enter your cell phone number, know that students or other faculty and staff will be able to find it and call you at it. If that's something that you're okay with, then that's your personal choice. And you can send correspondence to both your personal email and CSB+SJU, but I would really just stick with your institutional email. That's what it's here for. So I kind of pointed out that first page we went into when we landed, because you can customize what page you come into when you log into the Hive, and you do that right here at the login page update. When I log in, it usually takes me right to my agenda, which has my calendar for the day and shows me both my appointments from the Hive as well as those appointments that are coming through from Outlook. So I can kind of get a glance of what my day looks like and any meetings that I have within the Hive. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that later, but I wanted to point that out. So as you get used to using the Hive as instructors, you may find that the My Students page is a more useful page for you to land on upon immediately logging in, because that will take you to your your student list, and then you can filter that based on your instructor connection, your advisor connection, or your all student connection that you have as an employee. So just a few things to point out. That's something you can customize, and you can always come back and update that at any point in time. I'm just going to point out the time zones. If you are leading a study abroad program, for instance, this may be something that you need to update at some point in time so that your time zone updates and you're in sync with everybody back here and vice versa. Share links is new. If you came to any of the trainings in January or kind of watching the information earlier, I know Brian, I came to talk with your department, and I came to COM as well, Betsy. We didn't necessarily talk about share links because this is a new feature that was rolled out over the spring. And this is really handy. If you are someone who likes to put in your signature line for students, schedule with me, click here. If you've used any other scheduling service, you can do that through this. So to link to your schedule, you can just come here and click on it, copy to clipboard. You see it says it copied it to my clipboard. And now, if I had a document open, if I was writing an email to someone, or if I had my signature line and I was setting it all up, I could just copy and paste that link in there, and it would take you right to my scheduling tab when you click on it. They have to log in. So if they're not logged in, it'll prompt them to log in, but then it will take them right there to your scheduling link. You can also link them directly to your profile in that same way. So it comes here and says, what do you need help with? I don't have office hours currently up for this week, so that's why it says, oops, there's nothing there. Give me a call. But that can be helpful to come right into that spot. So just so you know that, it's a simple copy and paste function. And the same if you want to take them to your profile. So maybe you want them to be able to see your phone number and your contact information, not go right to that scheduling. Maybe you didn't set up online scheduling. You can still link them right to your profile so they can get all that information and make those connections with you. There are also copy links on the services for, say, academic advising, XPD, career services, that all work in the same way. So if you want to connect a student with one of those resources, you can copy the links from their own profiles and put that into a message too. So that's what we call direct links. Anytime you see reference to direct links, that's what it's talking about, is that ability to copy and paste directly to those spots. And then you come to the general overview and your biography. These aren't, you can't format these very well. They kind of just run together. So it's like a paragraph for general overview and a paragraph for my biography. But I encourage you to put a little bit about yourself, what you teach, if maybe if you're an advisor for a club, or if you're an advisor for like pre-law or pre-med, that might not be quite as obvious, but it's kind of one of those hats that you wear in addition to being a faculty member in your department. That would be a good place to put some of that information. So as students seek you out to connect with you, they can see what those connections are and how you help students. And you don't have to have a lot there, but it looks really blank when you have nothing. And I think it helps students kind of get a feel for who you are and those connections that they can make with you. So I encourage you to add a little bit about yourself.
Mary Beth, really quick, getting to the institutional profile based upon a chat question, can you show real quick how you got there?
Yeah, so go up to that hamburger menu, your name with the drop down little caret here, expands it out, and I clicked on institutional profile. And then it's gonna take it a second, and there we are. Cool. All right, so now we're gonna move on to appointment preference tab. There's two ways you can get there. You can either go back to that section we were just in from the hamburger menu, next to your name with the drop down, click on appointment preferences there, or you can click at the top. And I should pause. I forgot to say this, and this is important. Before you leave this page, hit submit. Whenever you're making updates on any of these three tabs, hit submit before you go to the next tab, because it won't save it if you don't hit submit. So I don't believe I made any changes, so I'm not going to hit submit. And I'm going to go to appointment preferences. This section kind of helps you to set up, especially if you're going to offer the ability to sign up online, where you kind of put some of the default settings for that. What your minimum appointment length is. You have your choice from 15 minutes to 8 hours. Now that would be a long appointment. I don't think any of us are doing that. But I put mine a half hour. It just kind of helps block it out. Some of your office hours setup, there was some questions there, but if you don't put anything in default in certain types, this is what it will look back to. So it's helpful to kind of say, at a minimum, I want my appointments to be at least a half an hour long, or if you like 15-minute increments, maybe that's important when you're advising, then just leave it at 15 minutes. I believe that's a default when you arrive there. And then we have our scheduling deadline. I have mine set to 4 a.m. the day of my office hours, because for me, I need to know what's happening when I start my day, but I don't necessarily need to know before that. You know, if you're running between campuses and things, it might be important to set something so that students can't schedule with you, say, at 8 a.m. for an 8:30 appointment, and you know, your office is at St. Ben's, but you had a committee meeting, you didn't think you had any appointments, so you started out at St. John's, something like that. So kind of keep that in mind. If you're a person whose workflow really depends on you knowing before you leave work the night before what your meetings are the next day, then you can set that the day before office hours. You can have no restrictions, and you can have hours, you know, an hour or 2 hours, whatever, before the office hours appointment. Now keep in mind, students can't see your whole availability. They can't just pick any time to meet with you. They can only pick from the menu that you put forward. So it'll still be within those realm of times that you've kind of created for meeting with students, but think about that and then pick the scheduling deadline that's appropriate for you. I encourage you to think about making it as flexible as possible. So if a student's panicking at 11 o'clock while they're studying for that exam and they might have a question, that's why I set mine at 4 a.m. because students can really, even if they're up doing, kind of burning the midnight oil, they can sign up for something. But hopefully they've gone to bed by 4 a.m. And when I get up after 4 a.m., because I don't get up that early, but when I get up, I know that whatever's there is set for the day. So kind of think about that and set it accordingly. And then I would encourage you to check this little drop-ins after deadline has passed so that you can add appointments after that deadline yourself if somebody stops in and you allow drop-in appointments. That's kind of how that works. And this is my locations. It's really simple to create a location. You just click add a location. The drop-down kind of has 4 types: office, phone, online, or elsewhere. Elsewhere might apply if, say, you hold office hours in the library or at McGlynn's or something like that, that you kind of do visiting office hours in a normal year where COVID's not an issue. But right now, you probably want to be looking at utilizing a phone or an online office hours setting. And you can just pick whatever that is. And then, for instance, I typed Zoom meeting so that they know that that's meeting online. And then you can copy and paste your meeting link for your direct meeting room right into that spot. And whenever a student schedules with you, it'll automatically send them a link that will be in their meeting confirmation. And you won't have to kind of do that in advance. Now you want to make sure you have your waiting room turned on so they can't just walk into your office at any point. Kind of think of it that way. That waiting room in Zoom is like shutting your office door. And then when they come to the door, you can admit them. So I'm just going to cancel it because I've already added mine, and I'm just going to show you what it looked like here. So is there any questions about that?
Yeah, Mary Beth, where do you get the Zoom link? Because I thought each individual meeting had an individual Zoom ID. So how can there be a general link?
There is. So here on our Hive website with the different kind of supports, there is this little instructions down here under level 2, setting up a Zoom location for office hours, where I walk you through that because I know how, but I can't tell you off the top of my head. I have to look. And we can schedule through here. And if you follow this through, it'll walk you right through how to find that and where to turn on that waiting room. So, okay. And if you have questions at the end and we have time, we can look at that some more. Cool. And then calendar managers. Does anyone here have someone who manages their calendar for them? Okay, I didn't think so. We won't spend time there. If you really needed to add somebody, if you took over the writing center, let's say, and you wanted to add calendar, well, I don't know. I don't have a good example. So that's more for services and like advising. So we'll keep going. If you've made any changes while we've been visiting, hit submit, and then we'll proceed to email notifications. On your email notifications, this is where you get to say how often you want the Hive to tell you stuff, right? Your planning reminders. I've asked for it to send me one email reminder with all my appointments for a day, and it sends those reminders for the day before. Now, based on my deadline, that's maybe a silly time to have it send it to me. So I'm going to actually change that to 5 a.m. the day of my meetings, because then when I come in, it's telling me what I have for the day based on anything that's been scheduled. So kind of probably want those to correspond with your deadline. I've turned off my appointment alerts because I already have them turned on from Outlook, and because I have it synced that Outlook and the Hive are talking to each other on the calendar, I don't need to get 40 reminders for a meeting. So kind of, if you utilize Outlook and you get your meeting reminders that way, you might want to turn it off. If you don't use Outlook a whole lot, you might want to leave it on. So just kind of use that as needed. And then I've asked for it to send me an email with a calendar attachment for every change to my appointments or change to my office hours and group sessions. This, pretend you don't see that. It's showing you that because it thinks I'm a student too. And then you get down to here, it's got the read busy times for my external Exchange calendar. This link is what you'll do to sync up your settings between Outlook and the Hive calendar. Now again, students, other faculty and staff will not see your availability, partly because you have no calendar manager assigned. When you have a calendar manager assigned, they can see the details of your other appointments, but since none of you have one, that doesn't apply. And the students only see the times that you put forward for office hours, that you say that you're available, and they kind of get a menu to choose from to meet with you. So it's more for your reference, and so that when things are scheduled in the Hive, it knows if you're available or not. Because let's say you said you had office hours from 8 a.m. to noon on Tuesdays, and then you got a committee meeting that got scheduled at 11 a.m. on Tuesday. That busy time would get sent to the Hive, and any availability you had for office hours with students would go away. And so they couldn't sign up. And so it does get very picky and won't let you double book things within the Hive, but that's because it's kind of built to not do that, so you can manage, so that students can sign up online. If when you go to do this, you get an error because you have busy times and conflicts, I would say create your office hours, save those, and then sync your calendar, especially if you started scheduling stuff for the year. There is one step you have to do from Outlook to share your calendar back, and I can show you that in just a moment. There are also directions here as well as in the written directions that I gave you here in this written guide about getting started. Okay. And then we've got our summary emails. Again, that's kind of the summary. This is in relation to tracking items. And so when there's tracking items that you're on the alert chain for raise messages, clear messages, or assigned messages, this would be the schedule at which you would get those. And so you can kind of decide how often you want those, what time of day, and then when do you want to get an immediate email, like if something's raised that you have privileges on, if an item is cleared, or if it's assigned to you. I've said my kind of daily digest is fine, and then or if something's assigned to me, so I need to know that I'm responsible and I need to follow up on that. And then your list of flag rules that you have access to will display down here, and if there's an emergency rule with this little icon, that means that it wouldn't follow whatever you put up here, it would just come to you right away. So any questions about that aside from how to share from Outlook? Okay. So if we go to tools.
You mentioned
yeah.
share from Outlook, but as far as we had a question in the chat about linking the Hive and Outlook, is that?
That's what I'm going to show you.
Okay.
Yep. I find it's easiest to go in through the web function for Outlook to do this step. So I've gone out to the office, I don't know if you kind of saw how I got there. I went to the CSB+SJU website, tools, email, and then I just clicked on my calendar once I was there. Because when you're in the web version, it's so easy. Share is right here. This little drop down right at the top. Share my calendar, and I want to share with Starfish at CSB+SJU.edu. Okay, so you're going to type that whole thing in, and I've already got them down here. But
Mary Beth,
share it.
Where's the share function? On the
Towards the top right hand side, there's that little, and then calendar, and then you just type in starfish at CSB+SJU.edu. And again, I have it so it can see all details because it needs to know kind of what you're busy with and all those pieces. And again, other people will not see those details. So it kind of feels scary to share that sometimes, but that's really for your use when you're looking at your appointment tab. Okay, and then you hit sync. And so then the nice part, I'll go over to the appointments tab so you can see how that kind of syncs up. Let's start with my agenda. So like I said, I had changed it so when I log in, I come to my agenda every day and it shows me my meeting schedule. So that's showing you external hold. That means it's coming from my Outlook calendar. Okay, and this is just viewable to myself and technically to Johnny Good, who can manage my calendar. He's the fake faculty member we created for demo purposes. So Johnny and I can see each other's calendar. If I click here, then I can see Johnny's meetings for today because he has shared his calendar with me. And then you can also look at things in a day view. If you're a manager for someone, they show in another color. The week view. And then again, if you're a calendar manager, that's when you'd have the option for a schedule tab. You may not see that schedule tab since you're not managing somebody else's calendar. And let's see, Johnny had some office hours that we saw here. And so that's how they display in his calendar. His are already over for the day, but if someone came in and you wanted to record that meeting, you can just click on it because they're already created there. And we'll talk about, I'm just gonna pause for a minute. So any questions, we kind of just walked through all of the profile setup, showed you how to link everything up. Did that all make sense? Thumbs up, everybody. Yeah, nods, good. Good enough. A good beginning, hopefully. And it's one of those things you just kind of have to get in and kind of walk through it. Again, refer to the handout that I sent. There's a written guide that walks you step by step. And if you have questions, I'm here to help, okay? I'm gonna talk about documenting your meetings and interactions with students because that's one of the other charges that we had for using the Hive with everyone. And we kind of transitioned nicely to coming over here to the calendar so that we could do that. There's a couple ways. If you've created office hours, you'll have blocks of time that are set here. And once they've been created, you can come here and you can edit them, cancel them, or add a walk-in who might show up for a time that's maybe later in the day or something like that. If you don't create office hours or you just have a walk-in appointment that you want to add at a time that you're free, you can just go up here to this little add appointment button. Anytime you see this green plus sign, that's like adding another set or another item, okay? So I'm going to add an appointment. If you manage a calendar, you have to pick whose calendar you're on, and then you pull up your student. You can pull them up by their last name, their ID number, or portion of their name. So for instance, if I know I want to meet with Jane Benny, I can put in that portion of her name and pull her up. I can also enter the full items. If you have permissions and you're meeting with a prospective student, you can add them as well. Not everyone has that functionality, but it could be something that if you meet with prospective students frequently, we could talk about. And then you're going to record the date and time of your meeting. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Outlook will be, or the Hive will be very picky if you are booked in your Outlook calendar. It won't let you double book yourself. So if you have hold time or like prep time marked on your Outlook, you'd have to kind of finagle your way around it or mark that as free to record a meeting at the same time. So just a little tip. And then where did it happen? Well, we met by Zoom, or if you met in your office, depending on circumstances of the year, whatever locations you set up. Then the reasons, when you're documenting a meeting, the reasons that display are based off all the appointment types that you have privileges and access to. I'll talk about that in a second in further detail, but you see that there's a long list of reasons. Students don't necessarily see all this list of reasons. They see a little bit different view when they go to schedule with you. But I'm going to say that we're having a general meeting. And you can see that based on this appointment type that I'm using, this is shared with academic advisor. you'll see this blue box about permissions wherever there is sharing that happens. So you'll see it on appointments, you'll see it on alerts, flags, referrals, high fives, and you'll see it on notes. So kind of pay attention to that blue box that tells you how things are being shared. And you'll notice that if I change what type of meeting it is, it changes who has permissions. So again, you can kind of see this one is, I believe this is under the FYX heading, or maybe it's, I don't remember what heading it's under, but this is who has the ability to see it. Now, they don't get sent anything about it. They have to open the student's file to see how the student's doing to view an appointment, but that would be something that they would be able to see. If it was something where like, no, this is really more of a private meeting, you can mark it private and then it's no longer shared. Everything in the Hive, though, is subject to FERPA and could be pulled out if a student requested their FERPA records, and which ultimately means when I'm doing reporting in the background, I have that ability. I don't make it a habit to pull out the private comments. We leave those there because that's how they've been marked, but I just need to be transparent that that's how they're stored in the system. Going back here, the hope is that most things can be shared within the proper permissions, because that's one of the benefits of having the system. Here in the detailed description area, that's where if a student schedules with you online and they leave details about what they want to meet about, that would display there for you if you opened up the appointment they had scheduled. If you type anything here, it will show in the meeting confirmation that is sent to them. Okay. If you add anything for the future, a meeting confirmation will be sent to them. If you add anything in the past, it's just documenting a meeting and nothing is sent to the student. So it knows future, send them a message, past, don't. So the outcomes tab is where you would record your notes and your kind of meeting documentation. You'd record your actual start and end time, which is helpful to long-term reporting if your department's trying to kind of figure out how often are you meeting with students and for what. If a student missed an appointment, you want to record that, you can record that here. And if you want to use it to send, both document your meeting and do a follow-up with the student at the same time, you can do that all in one step. The nice part is it ties that message you sent to the student to their Hive record, so that when you open up the Hive, you and then anyone who has these permissions in the box would be able to view that and kind of see that on their record. So you might say, Jane, thanks for meeting. As we discussed with your 4-year plan, I recommend whatever you recommend. You get the idea. Spell check does come into play, which is helpful. And then you can go to the speed notes, which is a place just to kind of record those points of connection and what you were talking about. So we talked about academic plans, and we talked about, I was looking for 4-year plan. If it's an advising meeting, I believe 4-year plan is one of the choices. So, and study skills. And then you'd hit submit, and that would save it to the student's record. So that's all there really is to recording those interactions or recording those appointments. If a student had one that was already scheduled, again, you could just come here to it. You'd hover over that meeting itself and then go to edit or outcomes would be the two things that would pop up for you there.
The questions come up of whether or not it's required to document those interactions with students, or for that matter, every interaction with students, with a student.
Every interaction, I would say no, because that's a very broad, I mean, if you see them in the hallway, no, you're not going to document that interaction with a student, right? I think what I understood and what was asked in the letter in December that was sent from Barbara May, Terry Check, and Chris Nairn at that point in time was asking folks to record those, document those meetings and interactions. And I would think of that in the context of someone coming because they were struggling in a class. If, you know, and you don't have to put the details down. You can still be very respectful of folks, but kind of trying to give a, you can use the speed notes to kind of just check the box talked about academic concerns, right? You can record, you know, met with student and discussed, just a sentence or two really to kind of capture that. And I think advising appointments, like if you're helping someone plan for registration, especially, I don't know if any of you are going to be first-year advisors this year, but you know, if you're a first-year advisor, you're going to work with a student and then they're going to hopefully take that baton and pass it to somebody who's in their interest area or wherever. And the advisors would have that ability to kind of open that file and see, oh, okay, this is what they've worked on so far when they're preparing to meet with the student. if a student went to meet with, they met with you as their advisor in their subject area, but then they went to meet with academic advising, or, and it was one of those shared appointment types, they might be able to open that and read it and be better prepared to meet with that student and see where they're struggling and get them to resources, rather than the student having to repeat kind of everything over and over again. So think about it in that way, to support and connect the student with the resources and give them the best support across campus that we can. And that's how I would kind of think of documenting those meetings and appointments and where that would become appropriate. Does that help to answer the question?
Mary Beth, can I add on something?
Yes.
I just came from the department chairs meeting, and the deans have said that in terms of Hive, they are going to require all faculty to use it for at least two things. One is to record attendance, and the other is to answer progress surveys. And the expectation was that you would also use it, though not necessarily required, for these other types of things, because that's the full benefit of the program. But absolutely, everyone's supposed to use it for those other two.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so attendance and progress surveys, yep, okay. And progress surveys is the next item on my list. I'm gonna open up the written guide for you to look at, because when the progress surveys aren't live, they're not here to kind of preview, and I usually don't have, I'm not an instructor, so I don't even get to see them. But I'm just gonna show you a few shots. When the progress surveys are live, and you all kind of nodded your head that, most of you had nodded your head that you had done some last spring. But when they go live, there'll be outstanding progress surveys link here at the top of your page when you come into the Hive. So you'll know if they're there to do. They'll also send you, I'll also send you a message letting you know that progress surveys are coming up. They're gonna go live on this date. And then when they are live, you'll get a message saying, hey, they're up and they're live now. I believe for the block classes, we have 2 progress surveys planned. For 3 block or full term courses, there's 3 progress surveys planned. So 1 or 2 blocks, there'll be 2. 3 or 4 blocks, there'll be 3. And they're timed such that it's right at the beginning to kind of get a pulse on, is everybody there? And then because it's such a short period, there'll be one other, the general academic concern, I believe, will be available too. So if there's anything that you need to connect with somebody about or any concerns right away, you can do that. And then the second one will be timed just prior to the W deadline in the classes, so that if there's a student who needs to be encouraged to maybe think about dropping the course so they don't have that on their permanent record with a fail or something like that, you can connect with them in that, or kind of all the things in between. So that's kind of the plan for this fall. When you click to open the progress survey, what you see is, let's see here, I'm gonna zoom in. There'll be instructions at the top kind of reiterating how the progress survey works. Your student list will be down the side. It'll be based on each survey is for a class, basically. So if you have 5 surveys, you're teaching 5 classes. The good news is during a block, you're gonna have how many surveys? As I understand it, probably 1, unless you're teaching, what, 2 credit courses or something like that. So for the most part, you only have 1 to do per block. So it's hopefully not too big a thing. And they really don't take that long. Because hopefully most of your students are doing well. If they are, you can give them a high 5, might say off to a great start, and maybe comment if they did something that was really kind of, you want to give them recognition for that first week. Maybe there was a group of 4 of them who did a group presentation. You click on that, you put a comment on each of them like, thank you, you guys really were stellar, whatever that looks like. If you have someone who never came for class, you can click the never attended action, never attended. Or if there's a general academic concern, or any of those other pieces, kind of click that there. Keep in mind, the academic flags go to students. You're communicating that you're concerned with that student, and you're also copying academic advising, myself and a few others, kind of to bring it into the loop so we can all figure out together how to support that student and kind of watch what's happening and see if there's ways that we can intervene. And then once you've kind of completed everything for your class, you hit submit. The other thing I'll mention is the system assumes if you don't click anything that there's no feedback for that student, and that's okay. So if they did something great, give them a high 5. If they need some intervention, raise an alert, raise a flag for them. But if they're just kind of vanilla, they're going along and they're doing okay, don't click anything off, just hit submit and move on. And that's really, so it doesn't take too long because most students will kind of fall into that category of hopefully, you know, somewhere in the middle. But that's where the high fives can be great to reinforce good things that are happening. Any questions about the progress survey itself? I will point out too, this little blue information icon is on the top of the surveys. And if you click on it, it will show you the flags and alerts that are related to that survey and how they work, okay? Kind of give you the basics. Within there, you'll notice it says this flag is visible to the student. The other item I want to mention in relation to progress surveys, but really going deeper into alerts, is that certainly the progress surveys are a point in time during the semester or during a block, as it were this year, that we reach out and ask you to raise flags and alerts for those that you have concerns about. But you can always do it at any point during the term manually through the system. And I can show you that in a moment. But if you want to know what it is that you're doing, what it is that you're sending, what it is that you're raising, what that message template looks like, here on the faculty portion of the Hive website, under general resources and tools, there's this alert details, flags, referrals, high fives, the workflow and communications. And you just click on that and open the PDF that it gives you access to. There's definitions, and then it walks through each flag and what goes with it so that you know what's there. So for the academic flags, we have our attendance concern. It walks you through who can see it and how, what the name of the message template is, shows you the template. There's a little message from the student success team, and then there's a message from your instructor. The message from the instructor is your comments. Whatever comments you add to the flag, that's what shows there as the message from the instructor. And we did that so that we're not putting words into any faculty member's mouth, and that you're really able to communicate your concerns with that student based on what you need to say and then their attendance in your class or whatever it is. And that's pretty much how it works for all of those academic concerns. It walks you through so you can review that. And then it takes you to social flags. If you ever have a concern for a student and you want to connect with student development because you think that maybe there's something going on from a student wellness or well-being standpoint, these are some flags that you can use to raise and connect with folks in student development. Generally, these go to residential life and the dean of students, and then on the more general flag that's for baseline concerns regarding student wellness or behavior, there's a bigger portion of their support team that can see it. For instance, if a student is an athlete, their coach may see it. If a student lives on campus, their residence director would see it. But again, it's based on those roles and relationships. So that doesn't mean every varsity coach can see it. It means their coach can see it. Doesn't mean every faculty resident can see it. It means their faculty resident can see it. Okay. And with the sensitive discrete concern, that list of student development folks contracts and it becomes less. It's still residential life and the dean of students, but those extra offices that are there that might be supporting the student are not present because it's meant for some of the more any type of emotional distress that the student might have. Any of those bigger items like substance abuse, eating disorder, are things that might be more sensitive in nature, but you want to make sure somebody connects with them and follows up with that student. As always, if something is life-threatening or immediate concern, call, but this basically, anytime an alert is sent, it goes to the faculty or staff member's email. Remember back when we were setting up our profile and we said how we wanted to get our communications and when? That's kind of the frequency with which we were setting it. This sensitive, discrete student concern is an emergency one, as is the student success. So those don't wait for rules. So if they said they wanted a weekly digest, it doesn't matter, this will go that day to them. Okay. And then it also shows you the templates for the high fives, for referrals, for students when they raise their hand, what's the message they get back. And then it just talks briefly about notes and messages. So hopefully this is a good resource for you and for other faculty and staff. If you hear anyone talking about like, well, I don't know what it is that I'm sending when I send something out, this resource is available right off the website so that you do know. And there's brief descriptions within the Hive, okay? All right, so that's progress surveys. So that's one of the things that you'll be required to do. And then the other item is recording attendance. And I'm gonna have to show you kind of via the written guide here again, because again, classes aren't in session and I'm not an instructor, but we don't have that access yet. But it's really simple. You can take attendance within 6 easy steps, okay? So when you go into the Hive, and I'm gonna move this up. When you come to your drop downs here under students, and it's thinking, depending on your roles and relationships will depend on what tabs that you see here. I only have two tabs because I'm not an instructor. So I have my students and I have tracking. As instructors or advisors, really instructors, I believe you'll see my students, tracking, progress surveys, and attendance. So you'll have 4 tabs across the top. If we were utilizing intake forms and you had access to that, that would be showing there as well. So you can go to the respective tab that you need to record attendance. And then the first time you go in, you'll have to set your class up, though I'm trying to work to bring some of that over so it's a little bit less set up on your end. But you just go in and say, okay, it's for this section, whatever that class is, and the meeting time, and you select that there. It will know when you took attendance last. So let's say that you don't take attendance every day, or you don't record it every day, but you know what you have in your notebook. And on Fridays, as part of your workflow, you sit down and you kind of update the Hive. That's one way to do it. It will know when you entered attendance last, so you can go back to and add it. It takes just a few clicks because it will come in here. It defaults everybody to present. So it's only those who are absent that you check the little button, the radio button for them to indicate that they're not present. Or if they're excused, you might use excused if you have somebody who is utilizing a flexible option and is in their room, for instance, like if they've been, you can kind of just define that how you need to. And then there's late, and then there's absent. So there's different ways. I would probably count anybody who's present physically or online as present myself, but excuse kind of gives you that option if there's some reason that you need to record something kind of out of the ordinary.
Mary Beth, I'm just going to say something from the chair's meeting as well, since it
Okay.
just.
Yeah, you've got new information, so.
Yeah, so if students are attending remotely, you must count them as present, as long as
Perfect.
they are
Okay.
in, participating in the class.
There was a question of whether or not it connects to Canvas as far as grading is concerned.
It does not. Sadly, the attendance from Canvas doesn't walk over here, aside from like a percentage score, and the attendance from the Hive does not walk back that way. Now, Brian, I'm looking to you a little bit because you're fresh from the chair's meeting with new information. So when you say that they're requiring them to use attendance, they meant this feature, or did they mean just recording their concerns?
I think it was this feature.
Okay. So, and I think that's what they wanted ideally when we started out. And because, and as things change so much, because not everyone was using Canvas when we went into this, into implementing this system last year, we wanted everyone to use this for sure. So we got one consistent record, right? And so that's how it's to look at it. There are ways to report attendance concerns that you have, and I want to point those out because I said I would talk about flags a little bit, and that's kind of how I want to kind of look at that. So I'm going to go back over here to our example of the Hive, and I want to turn that filter off because that's why Benny's not showing up, I think. So there's our student, Jane Benny. And we're going to go ahead and open her student file. You would have your connections. If I do this drop down during a term, you would see instructor, you would see primary faculty advisor, perhaps secondary faculty advisor. Brian, as a chair, you'll see department chair as a role that you have, and anything else that you have. On the all students, all my students, that's everybody. Every CSB+SJU employee has a connection at a very base level to all students. The only thing you can see with that level of access or that level of connection is really their picture and their phone numbers, and then anything that you create between you. But that gives you the ability to you can create an advising note if you're meeting with a student for whom you have no other direct relationship. They're not in your class, they're not your advisee, they're not in your department, but maybe you're doing like pre-law or pre-med advising and you need a way to record that advising note. So that's one of those ways that that connection is made. And also students can schedule with you online if you create a general, when you're checking off your appointment types, general appointments, so that if they're someone who maybe wants to be in your major but isn't yet, that's where some of those abilities to schedule come in, and that general appointment type. Okay, so you have your big long list of students. You click on the one that you want to see, and you can open up their student file and record. Now this is Jane Benny, our example student. And you come here, and if you're like, oh, you know, she's really struggling, I wonder if anybody else has noticed that she's struggling, you can visit the Tracking Items tab. And if you have permissions based on your roles and relationships, you will see different items displayed here. If you are someone's instructor, you would have really things within your own course context. If you're someone's advisor, you will see more information. So I'm going to hover here because I see that she's got this general academic concern. I can expand it out to read the comments that are related to it. And you can see this was the creation comment, and then it was cleared here. You could see this was raised and it was assigned for follow-up to a particular staff member. You might find one that you see, and I'm looking for an example. It was raised, and any time that you were reading back when we were looking at that alerts and workflows feature, anyone who has view access sees the initial flag and the initial comments, but they don't see ongoing comments, right? So if there's additional comments, then anyone with manage access can read those, okay? Or you can add those if you have manage access. But I'm gonna go here and hover again. Now it's already cleared so that I don't have the option to clear it, but I can add a comment. And so if you have information to contextualize maybe what you're observing for a student there and you want to add to that, you can hit comment and you can add that. Nothing by default, even if it's a flag that was shared with the student to start with, it doesn't go to them unless you send a copy of the note to the student. You can add a comment and choose to send a copy to the flag raiser so you know they get a little message in their Outlook saying that you added that comment. And if you need to raise your own flag, you'd go up here and you click on flag. Pretty straightforward. Depending on your roles and relationships will depend on what flags you see. Because I'm not an instructor or an advisor, I don't have any of those academic flags in my list. Everyone has the student success concern and the discrete sensitive student success concern. So that's what I'm seeing here. I'm going to click on that. It's not related to a course, but if it were, you could say it's related to this course in particular. So if they're struggling in a particular section, and you add your comments here. And the student does see those. You can see that the student view, oh, this is a student success. So they don't have it, but it's subject to FERPA is what that's telling you. And then you can see down here, it expands it out. This is the whole list of people that can see this particular alert. That looks like a big long list for the sensitive discrete student concern, but if you look at it closely, they're overlapping groups of people. So an FR and an RD are the base level of Res Life, but then you've got the residential life office staff. So you kind of see that it's kind of the same people with different hats on. And then you'd hit submit and that would get added. If you had a referral, you would do the same thing. There's different referrals that are available. For instance, let's say it's a financial aid referral. Here we have a little message that says, please delete this and add your own message. Use this to refer a student to financial aid. Student will be emailed. So it tells you a little bit about the referrals and how that works. And again, you can see who can view that if they have a relationship. And that was set by the department for whom we're making the referral decided who could see the referral types. And then again, a high five. Somebody did something good, you want to recognize them, just go ahead and click that and give them a high five. Keep up the good work. And you can see, same thing again, that blue box tells you who can see it. The one thing I want to mention is, so we talked about flags. If you have a concern that someone's kind of dropped off the radar in your class, one of the academic flags that's available is an attendance concern. So in a normal term, we'd say if they'd missed 3 consecutive classes or cumulatively over the course of a semester had kind of missed an equivalent of a week of class, whatever that looks like. If it's a night class, that might be once, you know, it adds up faster. But if it's going to be a problem for them to be able to get back on track, or if it's going to impact their grade, that would be when to raise that alert. You might have instances where you want to connect with the student and say, you know, I'm kind of noticed you started to drop out, you're not coming, but you're not quite ready to raise a flag. That's where you can use the note function. And with your hats on, you would have an attendance flag available to you. I don't have that one, so I'm just going to pick the general note. Again, it kind of says delete this text, kind of gives you a little bit of information. So you delete that, you create your note, and you can click send a copy of the note to yourself or to the student. And that will send that note to them. So if you want to use it to say, hey, Jane, haven't seen you lately. I'm concerned that you're going to fall behind. Please come back to class. Now, notes don't send a notice out to anyone else. So even though it's shared with people, they have to open the student's file, just like they have to with an appointment. They have to open the student's file, be reviewing their file in order to see that note, right? A note is a note. If you're using an alert, I try to use that terminology because an alert means that you've raised a flag and you're kind of calling someone's attention to it. You're alerting them. But notes are just kind of putting that in the file for review at a later time should it be needed. But it's a way you can utilize that to communicate with the student, document it, and have it for your records that you did that outreach. So beyond just taking attendance, those are two ways that you can utilize the Hive or leverage the Hive to communicate with students about concerns you have surrounding their attendance. And there is an attendance report that you can download from your attendance tab when you have that available to you during classes and during sessions. It's a simple little download tab, and then you click on the class that you need to. So if you kind of want to see that, it exports an Excel file for your review. Okay. The other thing I'll mention is on flags. If you create an alert, like an attendance alert, you're really the only person who will know that a student has returned to your class. And so we do look to the faculty to go back and clear those. If things are not cleared, then system-wide we'll clear those at the end of the term. But hopefully the intention is that, kind of as I try to show here, we have that ability to add those ongoing comments. Like if you raise an alert and the student replied back to you, you could copy and paste their comments into a note saying, you know, if they said, Professor Larkin, so sorry, I haven't been feeling well, I'll be back to class on Monday. You could copy and paste that in a comment and save it just here so it's tied to that threaded record. And then if they don't come back on Monday, you could raise a comment and click to copy the student and say, hey, Jane, thought you were gonna be here today, didn't see you. I hope everything's okay, whatever that looks like. Or if they come back, you can use a clear comment. Jane, it was great to see you in class today, so glad that you're back. You wouldn't have to say that to Jane. You could just say, Jane returned to class on, you know, Monday, 7/13, and hit say clear, and then it resolves that flag, takes it out so it will no longer be on your active flag list, clears it for everybody else. They know that Jane's come back. So I don't know that Jane's come back to your class. I can add comments as her advisor or something like that, maybe to contextualize, but really look to that person who raised it for the most part, because you're going to know if it's resolved. Any questions about adding flags, commenting on flags, clearing flags? I think we've covered the items that were listed in the basics outline and the items that were referenced from Brian fresh from the chair meeting with what's going to be required. So hopefully you can do all the things that you need to do there. And you also have the written guides and the video tutorials at your disposal via the document that we sent out. Are there just any other general questions remaining or anything else that you wanted me to show you that I haven't touched on yet today?
I have a question about the scheduling appointment. So far I set up the office hour is just the same thing as on my syllabus for next semester for my 3 courses. So, but I'm okay if the student want to see me any other time. If that means when I have the office hour available there, they can only schedule during my office hour, or they're still allowed to schedule any other time, like outside office hours.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's partly defining what you mean by, like, I have these 2 office hours that are my office hours. I know I'll be here, but I'm going to put these other times out for availability. So I'll show you, if I go in to see Johnny Good is my fake faculty advisor. And so if you've set up your office hours for online scheduling, they come to your profile and they'll see this blue square here. If you don't have online office hours set up, that won't display. I click that, and what do you need help with? If Johnny was an instructor, there'd also be course related as an option. So whatever appointment types they've set up office hours under, that's what the student will be choosing from that menu. And they'll say, okay, I want it to come and talk about career planning. I'm going to continue on. And then this is that menu I was talking about, what the student sees. They see just those dates and times that you've put forward. And they can say, oh, I want to meet on the 18th. Okay, well then these different locations, 9 a.m. looks good. And because I have multiple locations available, either phone or Zoom, then they have to pick that. If you only have one location, then it's just defaulted. I point that out. If you have office hours on one campus and the other, Make sure that you set one set for one campus and one set for the other, because you can't have back-to-back meetings and make it successfully between the two. Just something to make note of for yourself. I'm going to choose Zoom meeting. Now I can see it popped in that Zoom meeting room right there. If I had chosen phone meeting, it says, please call me, and I put my office hour or my office phone number there at the time of our appointment. And then this is that box where the student can tell you what they want to meet about. And they would hit confirm. And you see they got a little appointment confirm pop-up. And it says, I look forward to seeing you. And now that would be on Johnny Good's calendar for them to see. And I can say, I want to go back to the main services page. If, I'm going to pick on Teresa, I think she's got different things. Yep, if they have multiple appointment types set up, you can see that she's got advising and general appointment. And so they would choose what's appropriate for you there. And when you're doing your setup, it's kind of that adding that green button again to make a set of office hours. So when you want to add just documenting an appointment, you just use add an appointment. If you want to add a block of office hours, that's when you click on add office hours here, okay? And so you can change the name of these. So you might want to put, have one block called office hours and one that you kind of are thinking of differently. So maybe one of those blocks is course related, and that's the 2-hour block you have on Tuesday mornings. But then you have some that are course related, general appointment, and faculty advisor, right? Available on, because you don't have a lot of things that happen on Thursday. You just kind of put that time out there, knowing that Outlook would book over any time that you have that gets booked from other things. But you put your time in and you'd save that. And then this is where it would kind of, when you check these different boxes off, would give that drop-down menu to the student when they go to sign up with you online that says, what can I help you with? And it would say course related, faculty advisor, a general appointment, and then they choose that sub reason from there of what the reason was that related to that. Does that help a little bit? So your syllabus could still say it's this, but you can make further availability out there that they can sign up for. And then also I want to point out additional instructions. We have that basics, but you have a limit of characters at your locations. If there's additional information you need to share, you can put it here. And then the start and end date, I think this is one of the best features of it, because I can just say end of term, and it ends at the end of fall term. It knows what the end of the term is, and it will just end it so that you can customize your office hours for the next semester based on whatever that schedule looks like. Or with our block scheduleness, I suppose, maybe you want to end on date and you want to end it, at the end of the block, whatever that looks like. So you can set those to kind of cancel out there. Any other questions?
Can we set up the attendance feature now? You said it took just a little bit of work to populate that. Is that something we can do now, or do we need to wait?
Hopefully it will be here shortly. I will be transparent with you and say that this morning I noticed the connections have been, there's something calendar-wise that's not linking up. If you went in and looked at your connections and an instructor, you would not see your fall people there right this second. And I think it has to do with the fact that we're between summer term and fall term. And Brent, I have messages out to Hobson's, who does Starfish and IT on our campus, to say, I don't see any errors in the system. I know we sent the files last night. Why isn't this displaying? So hopefully that will get resolved shortly, and then you'll be able to set that up. So yeah, as soon as you see it there, you should be able to go ahead and kind of do that pre-setup for the fall once classes are assigned and updated. So once they're from Banner to the Hive, they should be there for you. Cool. Well, we're 3 minutes over time. I'll hang out here if anybody else has any other individual questions. But again, you can reach me. My phone, my campus phone is here available in my office on my soft phone. I'm usually on Microsoft Teams, and I'm available via email. So whatever works for you. If you have a quick question, give me a call. Send me a message on Teams. If you have something a little bit longer, we can set a time to kind of meet individually as needed. And if any of you, if I haven't been to visit with your departments, although I have hit a lot of these, I'm happy to come and visit and offer any guidance or discuss things to kind of help your team as needed.